Well, we often talk about the three great mountains in China over the ordinary Chinese people, and they are the property and education and healthcare. So now we have seen crackdown in education sector, in the property sector. The next in line, I believe, would have something to do with the whole healthcare system, because the public healthcare system is still quite hard to get a spot for ordinary people. It is getting cheaper than before, but still quite expensive. And the private healthcare sector, especially those foreign-owned healthcare companies, they're quite expensive as well. So I think there will be more regulatory addition in those areas. But beyond that, in general, I think China is entering this phase of adding more regulations across the board, because the reform is getting harder. And when we talk about early reform in China, it was a lot easier, and those are the low-hanging fruit. But now we can't even talk about the regional reform for finance, for example, or for healthcare. It's going to be nationwide, and the impact will be blown out, and it will have international impact and spillover effect as well.
Interesting. So we'll keep an eye on healthcare. We had somebody earlier in the week saying insurance was a sector to watch as well. And I want to ask you, Wang, how much of this is to do with the slowing economic growth story in China? Some people have told us they think it's almost like a distraction tactic. Does it dovetail? What is Beijing's thinking on this?
Well, China's economic growth now has two big drivers. One is export, and we all know that global dependence on things made in China has increased after COVID rather than decreased. But when it comes to domestic demand, the property sector has been the only growth engine. But it seems that the central authorities is willing to make the trade-off between economic growth and financial stability, which I think actually make a lot of sense. And when people talk about the potential financial crisis in China, in one way or another, it's related to real estate. So now at least we have the clarity that Chinese government is determined to rein in the aggressive expansion of the real estate sector. It is no longer relying on selling land to support its economy. So for the long-term scope, this is a good thing. But for short-term, I believe the third quarter and fourth quarter economic data will be very ugly. But even that, for this year as a whole, the Chinese government will reach its goal of 6% of economic growth. In fact, we believe it's very likely to exceed 8%.